Okay, so doing my usual 5-minute check to see if we are all set up to go live, because I have another fabulous student here who's going to sit down and talk with me all about her journey in Portuguese. So if I can get a yes in the chats or a thumbs up from my team to say that this is all working and set up. Fantastic. All right, we will get started in 4 minutes, because you know that I love to be punctual. So while we're waiting, go ahead and say hello in the chat and in the comments. Let us know where you are tuning in from. And if you have any questions for Sharon, so you may be in the same situation as she is, which is relocating to Portugal, and want to know something specific about learning Portuguese. So that's what we're here for today. So if you do have any questions for Sharon, please drop them in the chat or in the comments below, and we'll be back to start in a couple of minutes. All right, everyone. Então, pessoal, shall we go ahead and get started, because it's 5:30 and there are already lots of you here. 37 people already, that's fantastic. I'm seeing you in the chats. We've got people saying hi from Hawaii, Florida, Wales, Alabama, people who are in Portugal. So hopefully you guys are all excited for this lovely live session I've got. I really look forward to doing these student interviews, because they are just so joyful to hear people's stories of how they have settled in Portugal, but also, of course, most importantly, made really big improvements and amazing progress in their Portuguese conversation skills, living the dream, making friends, and that's what I want for all of you. So I am here this week with my student Sharon, and we're going to talk all about her journey, where she started, where she is now, and also how she got there, because I really want to encourage as many of you guys as possible to start learning Portuguese and show you that it really is possible, regardless of your age, regardless of whether you have tried and failed to learn in the past. It really does make such a difference to your life here in Portugal. As you know, as Sharon's story is about to show us. So I can't wait for that. So if you are tuning in, I'm sure you probably do already know who I am, but just in case you've stumbled on this and like, who's this woman? My name is Liz, and I am the host of the YouTube channel Talk the Streets. I teach practical Portuguese in plain English, and I'm also the creator of the Portuguese Pro program, which is an online program and community that takes people from saying their very first words up to having their first conversations in Portuguese. And that is how I met Sharon, another amazing student that I can't wait for you to meet. So let's go ahead and add her to the stream so that we can hear her story. Hi, Sharon. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing well. Thank you.
Fantastic. It's so great to see you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me and chat to everybody who is tuning in now. So we want to share your lovely story. You actually relocated from the US to the Algarve completely solo,
Yes.
which is an amazing achievement in itself. But also you've made such huge improvements in your Portuguese, made some amazing friends, and that is what we're going to talk about today. So even though I know you very well, people at home don't. So let's start from the very beginning. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are, why you decided to move to Portugal, and therefore kind of learn Portuguese?
Okay. I'm Sharon Miller, and I'm from Denver, Colorado. But during the COVID shutdown in April of 2020, I moved to West Virginia and worked remotely from there. And I was approaching retirement. And one morning, a memory came back to me, intuition, daydream, vision that I had back in the 70s when I was in college. I actually saw myself living in Portugal. And that made no sense to me whatsoever because I knew nothing about Portugal. And I was studying Spanish and French. So I said, that makes no sense. Just forget it. So fast forward 50 years, this came back to me. I thought, oh, I'll look into this and see if there's something to that. And the more I looked at it, when I visited Portugal, I knew that this was where I wanted to retire. And I started out by taking some Portuguese with Pimsleur and doing some apps, and felt that I was just really getting nowhere with it.
Okay. So first of all, I love the fact that you just had a feeling. You were like, 50 years ago, I had a feeling that maybe I should go to Portugal. And then you actually like rediscovered that and then went with it. I think that's so cool. Such a nice story.
Yeah.
And it's also really interesting that you did actually study languages in the past, you know, back in the day at college, however many years ago that was. But even when you actually came to start to learn Portuguese, it wasn't as simple as you thought it was. What were some of the kind of main obstacles in your way? And let us know in the comments if you relate to Sharon's plight here when she started learning Portuguese.
Well, you know, I was expecting it to be more like Spanish,
Mm-hmm.
and it isn't. And when I would listen to the speakers on Pimsleur, it was hard for me to reproduce the sounds that I needed to repeat to learn the language. It was really even difficult for me to hear what those sounds were. And I did work with a few other apps that you can download on your phone. But what I realized is that everything was a little bit disjointed. And most importantly, I got no feedback. I had no one telling me, oh, this is really the sound that you want to make, that kind of thing.
Sharon's freezing a little bit. I'm just wondering if that's only happening to me or if it's happening to others at home. So let me know if that is happening. And if it does, Sharon will just ask you to leave and re-enter. But it doesn't look like it's happening to anyone else, just to me. So ignore that. So you were, it's my internet, is it, that's doing this? How is this possible? am I back?
There you are.
Am I back? Does everyone have me?
Yes.
Yes, I'm back. Okay, thumbs up.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. This is the joy of doing things live. We get technical hitches, but hopefully we are back here now. Okay, so sorry about that. Let's cycle back. So the question that we had for Sharon was, what were the kind of main obstacles you were coming across? It was listening, I think I heard there, and then also the fact that even when you were trying to reproduce the sounds, you weren't getting feedback, so you didn't know if you were actually doing it right.
That's true. So I discovered the Portuguese Pro course and signed up with you on July 1st of 2022.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew I was in the right place immediately because the first thing we do in the class is we start speaking. There is a 30-day challenge with phrases, day-to-day simple phrases. Thank you, and can I have a cup of coffee? And I don't need a sack when I'm asked at the grocery store. Things like that. And immediately we start speaking, and then twice a week there are live workshops with the entire community of students, and we have pronunciation workshops where we can record our saying these phrases, and then our improvements are pointed out to us. Let me just put it that way. What we need to work on.
So many improvements. So that's
Yeah.
so good. So, okay, I love that. And that's really, really helpful to hear. So in your day-to-day life now in Portugal, what are you able to do? Do you use it on a day-to-day basis? Tell us what it looks like now when you're using your Portuguese.
I speak Portuguese to some degree every single day, whether it's at the shops or taking a walk with a friend, or just this past Friday, I had some questions for my banker and sat down with the banker and did the entire conversation in Portuguese back and forth. And so that was a huge win for me. Friday evening, I spent with a colleague from ReFood. I went to her art exhibit where she had a painting exhibited, and afterwards she took me back to her house with a couple of other Portuguese friends, and we spoke Portuguese the entire evening. And I found out some things I didn't know about her, and it was just, that's what I can do now.
I'm so impressed because, and people in the comments can't believe it either. They're like, really? After 1 year, you're able to do all of these things? But it really is that kind of build up of starting with the practical stuff, training your ear to understand Portuguese, and then actually pushing yourself to actually start conversations. So you were such a great student because you were so present, you were so motivated, you did so much work for this, because I have to say, spoiler alert, you do have to do work to get this far as Sharon had. But hearing that you're able to use it on a daily basis now, given that when you joined us over at Portuguese Pro, you felt like you weren't getting anywhere. That is such a major breakthrough. So if you have just tuned in, hi, I'm here with my student Sharon, and she's sharing all about her experience learning Portuguese to give you guys the confidence to do the same. So she started from zero, but she's now, as she just said, happily communicating day to day, making new friends, navigating the bank and all of these things in Portuguese. So if that's something that you want to do, and hopefully come and join us inside the program as well, you just need to go to talkthestreets.com/apply. There's an application form there, and then we will be in touch if you qualify for an application form, and we would love to work with you too. So if you want to find out more, that is where that you need to go. So I've got a very vivid memory, Sharon, of when you had a really huge breakthrough with your Portuguese, and it's when you started to tell us about your friendship with your landlords, Carlos and Rosa. So I think this is the kind of thing that people really dream of when they think about coming to Portugal. It's actually making friends with the people that they meet. So can you tell us a bit more about meeting them and how your friendship has developed?
Oh, yes. Carlos and Rosa picked me up at the airport when I got in. It was about 20 minutes till midnight when my flight finally made it to Faro. And they had been waiting for me kind of all day. My flights kept getting canceled. And so, but they came and picked me up and brought me to the apartment and walked me through and showed me everything. And Carlos does fairly well in English and likes to use it. Rosa speaks French, doesn't have a lot of English, though she's working on that. And here's the thing, they are the kindest, most generous people. And we have become friends where we can talk about things that, that are important to us in life. Rosa is from Faro. She grew up here, and she likes to tell me about what things were like when she was growing up and what used to be there. And it's just marvelous. And the last time I was at Carlos and Rosa's house for lunch, he introduced me to the poetry of a local poet, someone from Faro here. And we were able to talk about the poetry itself. And it was, it's just magical. It's magical to be with Carlos and Rosa.
And did you imagine that you'd be discussing poetry with friends when you started learning Portuguese?
No, I mean, not at this point. Someday, yes. But I thought this was like 5 years down the road.
Mm-hmm.
After being immersed for 5 years.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So this is a picture of lovely Carlos and Rosa. Yeah. And another lovely thing that you shared with us as well, that you can actually teach them things. So you were having lunch and there was a story, you were trying to find the word for octopus, and you actually managed to teach Carlos the word for octopus by explaining in Portuguese. So you didn't resort back to English, because I know this is something people really stress about, like, I have to just switch back to English all the time. But actually, once you've reached the level that you have, you can describe your way around things, and you can also teach them new things too.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. And it's also very cool that you started quite a while before you came to Portugal. Can you tell us a bit about that, and was that a good decision?
Yes, I started in July of 2022. I moved to Portugal on October 18th, 2022. So it was about, 4 months, 5 months, something like that. And truly, if I had it to do all over again, I would have started much sooner, as soon as I had the impulse to look into moving to Portugal.
Right.
This
is a question we get asked a lot. People say, well, I'm not moving for like 6 months or a year. When should I start to learn? And we always say no one regrets starting sooner. And people often say, I wish I had started sooner, because it's a lot to get your head around, right? So the sooner you can start, the better. So it's good to hear that you back that up.
And the course keeps you engaged. I mean, even if you're not in Portugal, if you were in the United States, because of the community, you're still engaged with the language.
Yeah, exactly. It's a way of immersing yourself, even though you're not here yet. So that's fantastic. So for those of you who don't know, the actual final milestone of my program is to hold a 10-minute conversation with a native speaker, because we don't want you to pass a test where you tick boxes or write sentences or anything like that. We actually want to test your ability to speak. So you took on this challenge with Carlos and Rosa. So we are going to take a listen now. Now, I know that everyone hates hearing the sound of their own voice. So well done already for allowing us to show this. But let's take a listen to Sharon with Carlos and Rosa on a typical lunch, where she chats away with them in Portuguese.
É muito bom.
Ainda bem. Gostamos muito de ouvir. É Nespresso. É bom. Nespresso.
Uma máquina.
Uma máquina especial. E o café também especial. Muito bom.
E é muito fácil fazê-lo?
É muito fácil. É só pôr a cápsula, água, ligar a máquina e sai o café. É só carregar no botão. Onde é que está o açúcar?
E um chocolate. Sim. É muito bom para a saúde, o chocolate. Sim.
Um bom chocolate.
Um bom chocolate.
O chocolate, sim.
in West Virginia, Virginia do West, as sal no oceano baixo das montanhas.
So what people might not know, Sharon, is this conversation actually went on for like an hour and a half. This was just like a tiny snippet of it. So how does it feel to actually be able to just make things up on the spot, start telling them about how chocolate is made in West Virginia and things like that? Does it feel good?
It really does, because that's part of being self-expressed. I can be more self-expressed. Now, I do have to point out, I am a long way from being fluent, what I call fluent, but I can have those kinds of conversations. And I had an occasion, we'll talk about refood in a minute, but there was a time when I made a really funny mistake in my Portuguese, and everyone laughed, and it was, for me, they weren't laughing at me, they were just laughing because it was delightful and it was funny, and I felt like such a part of the gang. I was part of them. They felt comfortable enough to laugh. Yeah.
That's so nice, because this is what people often say they miss, right? Like expressing their full personality and really being able to joke with people, because that's, it is a bit advanced. So tell us then about the volunteering you've been doing. You mentioned refood already. Because I remember you saying that like listening comprehension is something you really wanted to work on. And I love that this was the way you tackled it. Tell us about starting to volunteer with refood.
Yes, well, because it was one of my goals that I was thinking within 5 years, I will be good enough in Portuguese to do the things that I want to do. I had actually given myself 1 year to be good enough at understanding Portuguese to do the volunteer work I wanted to do.
5 years, wow, okay.
Yeah. But I had written that goal and said in 1 year, I'll be able to understand. But during the course of that week, I walked by the refood location. The door was open. So I popped in, and in Portuguese, I said, I'd like to volunteer here. And I speak a little Portuguese, but I don't understand very well. And I was told in no uncertain terms, that will not be a problem for you. We'd love to have you. I started working there within a week.
Amazing.
And it is an amazing opportunity. And yes, it does help with listening comprehension. And sometimes I don't get it. And there's one colleague who will literally just take me by the hand and show me what she means. And,
right.
That's what she was saying. I get it now. So, and it's just been lovely. Yeah.
I mean, I can see the joy on your face when you talk about it. This is a lovely picture that we have of you with the people who are working there. So this is a food waste charity where you have food that gets distributed. What kind of thing do you do when you're there?
Oh my goodness. I do a lot of washing dishes. I know how to portion out soup. I know, and meals, and we have plastic containers, but sometimes we don't have the lids. So I will spend a lot of time just finding lids for them. I do all kinds of things. I worked a double shift this past Wednesday. I worked 5 hours on my feet the entire time, moving the entire time, and loved it.
That's so great. I love to hear that. And it's not just your language skills that are benefiting here. It's also you're benefiting the wider community by taking part in something like that. And I think that's something that can also really make you feel really connected. So once again, if you have just tuned in, I'm sitting down with my student Sharon. We're talking all about her progress in Portuguese. She's going to give you some tips. So if you do have any questions for Nancy, please Sharon, please put them in the chat. I was just reading a comment from someone called Nancy, so it grabbed my attention. If you do have a question, please put it in the chat or in the comments, and we will see it, because we're going to get to that next, kind of what she recommends for your journey as well, if you're doing something similar. And if you want to find out more about my program, Portuguese Pro, which is how I met Sharon and how she's got this far, talkthestreets.com/apply. We do have a little bit of a wait list. It often takes about a week for us to get back to you with whether we think we can help or not, but we would love to see as many of you as possible there. Okay, fantastic. So let's move on to that now then, Sharon. What is kind of the advice that you have for people maybe who are sitting there thinking, well, it works for Sharon, but it probably won't work for me? Like, how should I get started? What are the things I should be thinking about? what kind of advice do you have for new learners of Portuguese? Where should they start and what should their kind of mindset be?
Well, for me, the main thing was speaking, because that's how we communicate. All the writing, reading, grammar, that will come. But if you're speaking to people, if you're saying bom dia and obrigada and things like that, you've already started something. So that's the first step. The next step is it takes courage to do this.
That's exactly what I was about to ask. How do you find the courage to actually do the speaking?
And, one of the things for me, because that's what I really wanted, was to be able to communicate. And, one day I just sat there and went through all of the possibilities. I'll sound like an idiot. I'll be annoying. And finally just said, if I don't do this now, I will never do it. So I took a deep breath and got up and went over and said, bom dia. I also joined my local soccer team. I'm a part of the supporters group and spoke to the women in the stadium shop in very, less than kindergarten Portuguese, but managed to understand the ticketing and becoming a partner, and started going to the games and started learning the chants. And again, that took courage to be there and kind of move my mouth until I could really understand what they were saying. And that part of it too is just a great joy for me to be a part of all of that. But
I love that. I love that advice. It's now or never, right? Nothing ventured, nothing gained. I always tell you guys, and I've done a video about this on the channel as well, like, what's the worst that can happen? I mean, sometimes you might have someone grumpy who doesn't want to help you, fine, but it's really not that common. You will mostly find people are encouraging. Have you found that people have been encouraging when you've tried to speak?
Yes, and this is the really neat thing about this, is that your reward is immediate. The smiles, the way that people's faces light up. And of course, they immediately know I'm not native. And so we get into the whole conversation about being from the US and how I got here. But, already you've started the conversation just by saying a few words. And those smiles are worth everything.
Perfect.
Those moments are priceless.
So one question that somebody has asked here is, how much time each day did you spend studying? And that's a really important question, because it is kind of different for everybody. But at the same time, if you want to see the amount of progress that Sharon has seen, you do need to put in a certain amount. So what did that look like for you, Sharon, with your study schedule?
Well, my goal was to do half an hour a day for each week. And I knew that I wasn't actually going to do 7 days a week. But I would sit down and do the course 15 or 20 minutes, 4 or 5 times a week, except for the weeks that I didn't. But I always had those 2 live workshops to ground me. I always got back into it. And when I wasn't actually doing the study with the modules, you had given us resources, the music to listen to on Spotify and the podcasts and reading the news and things like that. So I always kind of had Portuguese around me, even if I wasn't sitting at the computer doing a lesson.
Yeah, fantastic. That's great, because I always say that little and often is best. Like, sometimes if you sign up for an intensive course, you're kind of there for 6 hours a day for 5 days in a row, and your brain just can't absorb that much information. So that's why this approach is really helpful, where you've got bite-sized pieces and you keep nibbling away, and before you know it, you've made you've made lots of progress. So that's really, really helpful. Is there anything else that you would recommend that people do to continue practicing, especially if they're not in Portugal yet, because you were learning when you weren't yet in Portugal, right?
Well, just doing it, allow yourself to make the mistakes.
Great advice.
And hope that you have someone like Liz and the entire Portuguese Pro community who will assist you with that, who work with you to get through that. And know that there will be times where you kind of back away a little bit. But again, you'll have the support to get you through that too.
Yeah, that's really, having cheerleaders is really important. So whether it's inside like a program like mine, or if it's, you know, friends that you're working with, having people who you can share this kind of experience of like, oh God, I went up to these people and it went really well, or it didn't go well. Having people like that to share with is really helpful. So the Portuguese program itself, would you recommend Portuguese Pro to other people?
Yes, without a doubt. It's absolutely the best. I mean, that is why I can do what I do now, is because you've got me speaking right away.
I'm so happy to hear that. Yeah, breaking down that barrier of speaking is the hardest thing, and that's why, you know, we really have tailored this program to be about conversation skills. So I'm really happy to hear that. And one more note on the football. Tell us about the night that your local football team got promoted, because that looked so joyful. You shared amazing pictures in the community. What was that like?
It was, yeah. It's hard to describe. It was a huge party. Everyone was so happy. For those who don't know, my local team was promoted into the Premier League of Portugal. And that is a big deal, even for non-soccer fans. The whole city benefits from this, and the whole city celebrated. So, yeah, it was wonderful. I was so happy to be there. Beyond a dream come true.
Oh, I love to hear that. This is so fantastic. Well, I love hearing that you had a kind of 5-year goal and that you're already there after 1 year. And it really is down to the hard work that you have put in, Sharon. So, you know, don't underestimate your role in the success that you've had. So I'm just super impressed with everything that you've done. So listen, I really want to encourage anybody who has listened to Sharon's story this afternoon, if they're thinking, well, that sounds great, how could I do the same thing? Then we really want you to look into joining us. So if you just go to talkthestreets.com/apply, that's where you will find the application form, and we will be in touch within a few days to a week to tell you if you qualify, if we think that we can help you. We get through the applications as quickly as we can, so you could find yourself hanging out with Sharon next. So one last question, Sharon, before we wrap up. What is your next challenge? Because it seems like you've done it, you're living the dream. What do you hope that you will kind of do next?
Oh, that's an excellent question. I'm still working on learning the chants and the cheers for my soccer team. And, you know, I have to have the anthem on my phone to read the lyrics, but, you know, that's a big one.
Amazing. All right. Well, I look forward to hearing you sharing that in the community, that you have been singing the football chants at the top of your lungs. This is such an amazing story for somebody who came to Portugal by themselves without prior knowledge of Portuguese. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure you have inspired lots and lots of people, but that's all we have time for, so we will wrap up. But thank you so much for joining us, Sharon. I look forward to seeing you in the community soon. Beijinhos. All right, everybody, that was so much fun. Thank you so much for joining us. As I say, talkthestreets.com/apply if you do want to come and be part of the Portuguese Pro family. But I will say ciao for now, and thank you so much for listening, everyone. Bye.